she's just evil and a witch.
Hi, Ghosty fam. Welcome to the Activity Continues podcast. This is our first episode of our new season, season 4. And if you're just finding us, we are friends and soul sisters who recap episodes of the TV show, The Dead Files. And we talk about other creepy shit as well as any random thing that pops into our heads. You might get a TV show recommendation or a tasty trivia tidbit. One never knows. I'm Amy.
And I'm Megan. Thanks for joining us again. This week, we are talking about the Dead Files episode called Evil in the Everglades. It is a brand new episode, season 15, episode 1, the one that just came out, and it originally aired June 1st of 2023. Also, please say hello to our newest team member, AP. She is keeping us in check with facts and honestly just keeping us in check, period. So, hi, Amy.
Hi, Megan. Hi, Amy. Hi, everyone. Just a fair warning here. If you have not watched the Dead Files episode and don't like spoilers, please don't proceed. Go back and pick an older episode of ours for today, and then come back to this one once you've seen the Dead Files episode, Evil in the Everglades.
Yes. Also, we have a content warning here. The only thing I know that we're going to talk about is murder-suicide. Did you guys see anything else in there that should be flagged? Okay.
No, not really. No.
Other than the, child being kind of tortured a little bit by the ghosty.
Hi, friends. Amy here. I do have another content warning piece for you. We did also talk about cremains and cremation and remains and ashes and bodies and other things that people choose to do with their bodies after they pass. So if that's icky to you, then just skip that part. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they didn't really talk to the kid. I don't think they talked to him at all.
But he was only 4,
that's
so maybe
he looked
that's
older
why.
In a picture.
He looked huge.
He's a big kid.
He's a
4.5
kiddo.
is what they said.
Okay, yeah. He's
He looked maybe 7. I would have put that kid at like 6, 7. He's tall. He's a tall kid.
Megan, did you watch Mrs. Harris?
Oh, no.
Okay.
What have I been watching?
I don't know. TikToks, from what I can tell.
I was watching something and I was telling Amy about it. And then she was like, well, you need to watch Mrs. Harris. And I'm like, oh, that's right. And then I forgot about it, which is the story of my life.
Yeah. I started. What did I start watching? I went back to Starstruck. I had watched the first season, and then I forgot that there was a second season. So I started watching that. It's really cute. Have you seen that one?
No, I've never
It's
even heard of
on HBO. It's or Max, I guess we're calling it now. It's about a young girl who's from New Zealand, but she's living in England. And she meets a boy and a man, I guess. She's 21. He's 25. I don't know. They lie about their ages.
In the words of Amanda from Wine and Crime, never meet a man.
If you can avoid it at all costs.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's a sweet guy, but he's also a famous movie star. And so it's kind of like her dating a movie star. And it's cute.
Yeah.
It's real cute.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's all I got for that.
Oh, I was going to ask if you've watched this season of Top Chef at all, Amy.
Oh, yes. Yes, I have. Yeah.
And did you see Padma is leaving Top Chef?
No.
Yep. She posted
I saw that.
at the end of the week that after 20 seasons and 17 years, she's leaving
done.
to pursue her other. She's got another show that she's doing and some cookbooks and other things. And her daughter's getting older too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I believe the amount of calories they consume in one season is enough to field a hockey team or something.
I mean, if they've got, they start with how many people and each of them cooks 2 dishes an episode.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they're eating just 1 or 2 bites, that's a lot of food. And they're not like on the light side. They're not like, oh, and this is my light. It's like,
Yeah.
and I soaked my butter in lard and then I seasoned it with bacon grease.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's true. The food is not healthy.
No.
Occasionally they will have a healthy challenge, but it usually doesn't go very well.
that's why restaurant food tastes so good.
Yeah.
It's all the butter and salt.
Yep. Salt and fat.
Salt and fat and lard. The 3 food groups.
Yep.
So.
Okay. Yeah, I will miss her. I
Yeah.
really like her. I wonder if they're going to keep doing the show and get someone else.
I'm sure that the show's continuing. It didn't say anything about that. It was a show decision. It was a her decision.
Mm-hmm.
Be interested if would they switch Gail over to being?
I would love that.
The host?
I love Gail.
I adore her.
Yeah, she's the best. Have you read her book? She might have more than one, but I read her. I think it's her first book about how she learned how to cook and got into the field, and it's really interesting. And of course,
Cool.
I listened to the audio, so it's her talking.
I was kind of intrigued that she put the notice out last week. Then I was like, well, I think it's to not overshadow the finale because the finale is this coming week. And if she waited till after the season was over, then the attention would be back towards her. So I think it was probably very strategic within the organization as well, and not just her decision of when to do it. But
for what?
So the finale is this coming week, so June 8th.
Oh, okay. We're still on Top Chef. Sorry, I thought we were talking about the Dead Files, and I was like, the finale it just started.
No, we were waiting for you to come back.
I know. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm so sorry. So I did take some notes on my phone.
Okay.
So that's what I'm going to look at my phone for that.
I have a few notes too.
I thought it was, first of all, I loved Amy's look. She looks older, but it's not like she just looks mature. And I feel like she's really coming into her own finally.
Yeah.
And she just looks amazing in this episode.
Great.
She looked so good.
It's almost like a lightness of that she is this part of her life is coming to a close. And there's almost like, I wrote down, love Amy's hair. That was one of the Yeah, I agree. Megan.
I almost texted you guys that, but I'm like, no, I've got to save something. I wanted to text you guys so many times, but I thought and even Matt, like, I love that he's getting a little salt and pepper.
Yes. Yeah. I think the goatee looks really nice on him.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I love when you go back to with goatee, but that's what my husband is. So makes sense.
Yeah. Mine too.
When you go back and watch like earlier seasons and you're like, who's that with hair?
Yeah. She looks really good. Yeah, Amy, I agree. She almost has that lightness, like a weight has been lifted off her chest.
And I'm sure it's because she knows she's only got
done.
4 episodes and she's out.
She's out of this clown.
She can see the light at the end of the tunnel, which must feel really good for her.
Yeah. Yeah. So when they're Kissimmee, Florida, and Steve said, real close to where that mouse lives. And I laughed really hard.
It's a city about 20 miles south of Orlando and real close to where that mouse lives.
I thought that was hilarious.
I wonder if they can't say mouse, though. Copyright?
Probably not. It's so hyper about that.
Like, even in my clay groups that I'm in, if people like use their designs of any like show, they'll come after them. It's like... Yeah. You guys are bagillionaires. Like, can you let Stacy from Iowa make some mouse earrings? Like, is she really going to put you out of business?
Right.
What was Stacy?
It's Michael Eisner. Just kidding. I don't think he's he's not the CEO anymore. He hasn't been for a long time.
I don't know who is, but
the person who is had retired, and then they had a new person in for like 3 months, and then they were like GTFO, and they brought the old one back.
Bob Iger?
Ooh, yeah, that's the current one.
Yep.
He's the one that had retired, and they brought him back, and they were like, this guy's killing us.
Yep.
One other thing about where they are, Steve said that's near where he lives. And we'll get into that part where they talk about the brothers, and he's like,
where he lives.
That's where he is, yeah.
Yeah.
And he says it's paradise, and I'm like, oh, it's so hot,
it's Florida.
Though. God. I hate Florida. It's too hot. I'm sorry, people who live in Florida. I'm sure your state is lovely. in February, but I cannot
Yeah.
handle Florida.
I'd rather have it be too hot though than too cold, because at
Not
least
me.
if it's too hot, you can go to the beach, you can go to the AC.
Yeah, but
you
if
can have
it's too
some
cold, you
ice
just put
cream.
layers on
No.
and you don't feel
Exactly.
bad about binging
No.
anything.
Mm-mm.
Exactly. You can always put more clothes on, but once you're naked and sweating, you're fucked. You can't
Yep.
do anything.
I
So, no.
concur.
We've highly derailed. I'm
What a surprise.
shocking.
I want to
Yeah.
cover some of the experiences that she has. First of all, the client is Lisa,
Mm-hmm.
and then she has a little boy named Mikey.
Yep.
And her father, Danny, also lives there. And then her fiance,
Michael. Yes.
And they have health issues. They see shadow figures, doppelgangers. They're physically attacked. The
Mhm.
kids' toys go off randomly.
Don't like that.
And, and Lisa says that everything was good and that, it felt light and everything until her mother passed away. And I don't recall how long ago her mother passed away.
It was like 2 years.
At one point, they said last year, and then later on in the show, they mentioned a couple years ago twice. But she also mentioned that her mom and Mikey were best friends, and
Mhm.
Mikey's only 4.5.
Right.
So
Right. So
I heard a
looks like
couple
2
of
to 3 years.
I heard 2 years a couple of times.
Yeah.
Okay. That's,
maybe a year and a half or something.
Yeah.
that's what I had in my head, but I wasn't sure if that's
Mhm.
really what I remembered. But anyway.
Mhm.
So yeah. Oh, Lisa thinks it's a demon,
Mm-hmm.
and the activity has gotten worse since
Mhm.
Mom died. And Mikey, the little boy, he sees things. And one of the things he sees is people in the swamp that is outside their property.
Yeah. So they
This
live
was one of
like
my
behind
favorite
this,
points.
like behind their house is a swamp with
Uh-huh.
like, there's no house. There's no
Mhm.
reason for people to be back there. So the fact
Right.
that he's seen people back there is unexplained, unless we talk
But
to Greg, in which case I'm sure Greg would have a really good reason.
The best part, though, was she's explaining that, well, he sees things, he sees people out on the edge of the property. He's like, well, is there a house back there? I
Mhm.
mean, it could be people. She's like, no, it's a swamp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a swamp.
She's like, Steve, it's not the dogs.
It's not the dogs.
It's not the dogs,
It's not
Steve.
the dogs.
It's never the dogs.
And he's not boozing either.
It's never the
Mm-mm.
dogs. It's never the cats. Nobody's boozing or on pills, Steve.
Nope.
But also
yeah.
that
Right.
she had lived there, Lisa has lived there since she was 12.
Yeah. Her
Right.
whole
I thought that
life.
was really
Yep.
interesting because she
Mhm.
didn't really talk about any major things happening when she was a kid.
No.
Mm-mm.
She did
And
say that
that it
they
was-
had some stuff that had happened, like a little bit of stuff, but she said it really ramped up once her mom passed away.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So maybe they just kind of gotten used to the little things that were happening. But then when
Could
her
be.
mom passed, that's when it got violent and the scratches started. And
Yeah. Well, and it
Mhm.
could be that Lisa doesn't really see the stuff as much as her father
Mikey.
Mhm.
does, and Mikey
Mikey.
now. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I think out of all of them, she has the least amount of experiences with it.
yeah,
Her and
she's got scratches,
Michael.
but
She
But I
she
feel
just gets more of the physical
Mhm.
stuff versus the visual
Yeah.
stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, she does have scratches and bruises. Mikey
Right.
gets them too, and she has some
Mhm.
photos that she shows.
One of them on her hand, that was not a scratch. That was like
No.
a gouge. Like
That
when
looked
you
like-
hit
yeah.
your hand against a door.
Or
Yeah.
when your dog thinks your hand is her toy
Mhm.
in the pool and accidentally grabs it.
So
Yep.
it could have been a dog then, is what you're saying.
Yep.
It could have been a-
It was today. It was today.
And
Aw.
but Lisa and Danny, her father, both hope that her mother has moved on.
Right.
They both,
They both said they didn't think that
They
she
didn't
was
feel
there,
her.
that they both thought that she was gone.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they hoped
Yeah.
that she was gone.
So one thing that interesting, I thought, that Steve learns from talking to the fiance,
Mm-hmm.
Michael, is that there was a murder-suicide that happened right
Yeah.
across the street.
That now that we were talking about what time when mom died,
Mm-hmm.
that murder suicide was in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Was she before or after that?
It had to be sometime around that time frame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I have
Wesley.
thoughts on the murder suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We'll talk more about that
Yep.
when we talk to
Yep.
the historian who does it. But
I thought it
And
was
like
really
I said-
funny when Mike was like, well, the guy was a really nice guy. And I'm like, how
Mhm.
many times do we hear that?
Yeah.
If he was a
He was
fucking
kept to himself.
psychopath, you probably would have
Mhm.
notified somebody. I would
Mhm.
hope.
Mhm.
Or like if you saw him dragging in like blue barrels that seemed to be really heavy, you probably,
Yeah.
I'd hope, would say something to somebody.
Well, and
Yeah.
people are able to present a different front to the world
Mm-hmm.
than what they have behind closed doors.
Exactly. Yep.
That's true.
Exactly.
Not saying that's the case, but it could be the case.
Mm-hmm. You never know.
Yep. Yep. Another thing I want to make sure we mention about when Steve is talking to Mike is that, Amy, you had thoughts on
Yeah.
Steve's stature.
Well, I found it really interesting. And I remember when you guys were talking with
Randy.
a previous client
Yep.
that maybe Steve's not as tall as we thought he was, because that's TV, man.
Mhm.
And I noticed that they never showed their feet,
Mm-hmm.
and the angle is an odd one. And then when you look at where their knees align, it just, to me, didn't quite make sense. So I think there might be a box there.
Maybe.
Or maybe they even did it like the forced perspective
Forced
thing, like they did in Lord of the
perspective,
Rings, where they stick the
yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely,
the
Steve
dwarves
is
in the
definitely,
back.
yeah, Steve is definitely closer to the camera at one point. But
Mhm.
yeah, it was just like looking at where the knee alignment is and torso alignment. I mean, obviously everybody has different proportions. It just,
Sure.
it felt a little off.
Yeah.
Felt a little Tom Cruise-y, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that too. I took a picture today when I was going through and looking
Mhm.
at it. What else do we need to cover about Steve? Oh, when he's talking to Danny, Lisa's father. Oh, yeah. He said he believes his wife has moved on. We talked about that. But he does
Mhm.
see two shadow men, and he feels that they're menacing.
Mm-hmm.
And also he gets a squeeze in his calf.
Like a
Mhm.
like a large man is squeezing his calf. He
Yeah.
says.
Oh, this was another thing I found really interesting. Do you notice Steve had Lisa push him, but he did not have Danny show
Uh-huh.
how strong the grip was?
Yeah.
No, but he also had. No, but he didn't. But he did have Danny punch the table.
Yeah.
Yes.
To show when
To
he
show
but he
how
didn't have
strong.
him
gets hit in the back.
Mm-hmm. But he didn't
thought it
have
was
He
him
didn't have
funny
a
too,
demonstration
'cause-
on him.
Both
Mhm.
times he was like, "Really? Wow. Yeah,
That hard?
that's hard. Yeah. Yes, Steve.
So then I made a few notes on Amy's walk, the first part of it anyway.
Mm.
And I noted she looks great,
Mhm.
but to be honest, she looks over it.
Mhm.
She looks ready to be done. And in some scenes, you can tell that it's taking a lot out of her
Mhm.
because, like, there's the scene where she meets the guy who shot himself in the head, and you can see her like wincing, like she can feel the pain.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I just can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Well, even when she started off, she goes, "Oh boy,
Mhm.
oh
Yeah.
wow, there's so
Yeah.
many emotions here, so many emotions."
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh boy. This is not a good situation.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I saw she repeated herself a lot
Yeah.
in this episode.
Yeah.
Like old. No,
Yes.
no.
Mhm.
Yep. She did a lot of weird things like that, and I recorded them all. So
I thought it was-
punch those in as sound
It was
bites.
really interesting when she was saying, "Yep, yep, yep." It almost sounded like she was listening to somebody,
Yeah.
and like they were telling her something the way Jenny
Yep.
did, and then she
Mhm.
was reiterating that, like, "Yep, yep, 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 yep." Okay, like that's kind of
Yep.
the way I understood that.
Yeah,
For that
that's what
one,
it looked
yeah.
like to me too.
And like the no is like that person was like, "This wasn't how it's supposed to happen. This wasn't no, like don't do that."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she kept doing this weird, like, blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. La 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 la. Uh-huh. You know, like
Yeah.
shoot this weird little. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like there's okay. Yeah, no, I've got some of that I
Mhm.
want to put in as sound clips, so I'll have to make note of that. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, the people that she saw was a woman in her 60s who was related to someone in the house who died of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all know who that is.
Mm-hmm.
Another woman who is a witch who hits the living woman. And Amy says she's just evil and a witch.
But I thought when she was talking later in the episode, it seemed like the spirits were calling this woman a witch,
Calling her
not
a
that
witch,
she
yeah.
actually was
Right.
witch.
Not an actual Wiccan practicer
Because
of
we know
Wiccan.
that
I
they're
don't
not
think that's
evil.
what she means. Right. We know witches are not.
and people
evil.
are not. Just for disclaimer,
Right,
witches
right,
and
right.
people who practice Wicca are not necessarily evil.
Correct.
I mean, I've been called a witch
Right.
by people who don't like me at certain things.
Right. So
well,
I don't know.
the thing is,
Yeah.
yeah.
real witches cannot be evil.
Right.
Because everything they believe that everything that you do comes back to you threefold.
Right.
So you would
Mhm.
never do something horrible because
you
it would come
get
back to you three times.
as worse. Yep.
Right.
Right.
So, yeah.
So just a
that
disclaimer.
is a good point.
We do not think
We do not
that
think witches are
Wiccas
evil.
are evil.
Right.
No.
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 In the words of Amy Allen.
No. Yeah.
No.
To quote Amy Allen, no.
Yep. So she also sees this dead guy wandering around with a gun saying, "She made me shoot myself in the head."
He's like, she made me shoot myself in the head.
And
Yeah.
then she also says he can turn lights off and on. And I think that must be what's going on with the toys.
Yeah, for sure. Because she said later on he can manipulate electronics, which
And then
batteries
she
are
sees-
electronics.
And then she sees a man on a boat. She says he's sick and he says, "We're all about to die." I'm not sure who that is supposed to be. They didn't connect that to
Mm-mm.
anybody in the past, did they?
They
No.
I
no,
didn't
they
think
didn't have that connection.
So
but
yeah, that
it-
was a
I'm
yeah.
curious if it goes back to stuff that Steve did find. There was just no like direct story correlation.
or they
Yeah.
cut it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's possible too.
Cut
But
it
that one,
out.
we did connect that to the shadow figures that Danny sees.
Mhm.
hmm
And then that's when Amy says, he's got abilities. Mm-hmm.
This man, this living man, feels older. He's got abilities.
Well, she said something about they're touching him, talking to him.
Touching him. Talking to him.
They're trying to get his attention.
Yeah, communicate
So then
with
she's
him.
like, they're grabbing him. This person is trying to get his attention.
Mhm.
Yep.
That would freak me out if somebody tried to get my attention. I would not like
Yeah.
it.
No. And then Steve goes into town, is digging through the archives, but actually he said, searching through old records.
Records. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So when he talks to an author named Dr. Brandy Stark, lady with the blue hair,
I loved her
She was
so
great.
much.
she was great.
Her hair was cool. Her earrings were cool. Her
Yeah.
outfit was cool. I just
Yeah.
loved everything about her.
She was cool.
Yeah.
For sure. So she tells about these two brothers, Leonard and Julius Rosen, who are two of four siblings. And I won't go into their story too long because it's long and we don't have a lot of time.
Mhm.
And I don't, not all of it pertains to
Right.
the reveal or whatever. But
Right.
anyway, Amy does see them at some
Mhm.
point. We'll get to that too. But they were in real estate. They bought the land and established the town,
Mhm.
Cape Coral. And this is where Steve lives.
Yeah, they were up in
Anybody wants to go stalk
Massachusetts
Steve?
and they like vacationed down in Florida and fell in love with it and moved down
Yeah,
there.
they were from Baltimore, I think,
Yeah.
originally.
Yeah, from Maryland. Yep.
Yeah. And then their parents were immigrants. Their parents were from Russia and Ukraine.
Mhm.
Yes.
So once they bought the land, they had kind of a rough go. All their siblings died off. Their parents died off. And then there was just one left. Leonard was the one that was left, and he was the older of the
Mhm.
two. And most of the deaths were cancer or heart attack.
Yeah,
you know, right?
Jake I thought was a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mhm.
And then
And
the
this-
two
one of the
sisters were
sisters
both.
Were the both the
Cancer.
sisters cancer?
Both were
Okay.
cancer.
I think
yeah.
so. Yeah.
Yeah. So at any rate, when he gets a little bit older, and he's the last one left, he can't really keep the company going. He has to file for bankruptcy and loses about $68 million, which in today's money is about $370 million.
That was in the early 70s, I believe. I think it was like
Yeah, I think so.
71 or
Mhm.
72 when he filed
Yeah.
for bankruptcy.
Yep, that sounds right. And then he died in 1987, which my calculations put him at 72 years old because he was born in 1915.
Hmm.
So old, but not
Not like
old,
super
like,
old. I
yeah,
was
'cause-
3 then in 87.
Oh, I was in college.
I was 2. depending on the time
was
frame.
3.
Okay. So yeah, I wanted to note one other thing. When Amy was doing her walk, and she goes and says that she sees a cemetery,
Mm-hmm.
and then she does the goofy voice thing again, and she
Mhm.
says,
I'm seeing a little cemetery. Yes. Definitely people buried. And then there's 4 people from this place, and they're coming. And they're pissed off.
2 men. One is really old, and they own something here, and she thinks they're German. And I'm like, close enough.
Close. She's
Eastern
not
European.
in that area.
They're
I mean, European.
Jewish. I mean, with the name Rosen, they're
Yeah.
gotta
they
be
have
Jewish.
To be. Yeah.
plus they're from Russia and Ukraine, which
Yeah.
is a lot of Jewish
A
people.
lot of
from
Jewish
there.
people.
I think
so
they
I
did
wouldn't
mention
call
that
them
they were
German, but-
Jewish.
Okay. Yeah, maybe. I just assumed they were. So, yeah, then Steve goes to talk to this cop about this murder-suicide thing.
Yep.
And yet, as Amy said, this was on June 7th, 2021.
Almost coming
took
up on
place-
this 2-year anniversary. As we record this,
Yeah.
it's June 4th.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
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 So this took place 100 feet from the house,
Mhm.
and the guy who killed people, his name was Jesus Nunez. He was boozed up and coked up, and he flew into a violent rage and
Mhm.
shot one of his friends, who is not named in the story, but I Googled him, and his name is Unique Luis.
Okay.
And he also killed Stephanie Ruiz, who is his girlfriend of 14 years. They had 4 children. Children were not hurt,
Mhm.
thank goodness.
Well,
And-
physically.
Right, for sure. Other scars, I'm sure.
Yes.
Mhm.
So then he walked outside, put a gun to his head, and killed himself.
And the way that they
And-
said was he was like out of his mind with
Mhm.
jealousy. He thought that there might be something between, how do you say it, Unique?
Yeah, it's spelled Yunieki, which is an odd name for Latino name.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound Latino to me, but
But
Luis
he-
is. But
He thought that there was an affair going on between him
Yeah.
and Stephanie.
Yeah.
Whether or not there was, the only people who know that have all
Okay.
been killed. But it's really sad that, he had a lot of drugs and a lot of booze.
Mhm.
And that's why in my mind, I don't know if this is paranormal or not.
Yeah.
And I know they
Well,
talk about it later about how, the witchy woman, not my words, made him do it. But I don't know.
yeah,
You have coke and booze in your system. That's not a good combination.
it's not.
And if you already are thinking, having jealous emotions, those 2 drugs are going to push you over the edge. So in my mind, I don't think that was necessarily a paranormal event.
Yeah.
I'm taking Skeptic Greg's
Mhm.
road on this one.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if we go by the fact that, if we go with the idea that the ghost of Jesus spoke to Amy and said, she made me kill myself, she made me shoot myself in the head, then it's paranormal. But if that isn't true, or that's not what he said, or something like that, then
Mhm.
maybe that's not it.
So, it could be potentially that maybe it was other voices. I mean, being drinking and coke and that sort of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of options that could be. And then potentially as he gets to the other side and is like, oh, it had to be this, witch woman who is
Mhm.
trying to do all this harm. That's why it couldn't have been me.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yeah.
It could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. One thing I thought was interesting is Amy said that this guy was complaining that his body was destroyed.
Mhm.
And I didn't know what she meant by that. But then later she says what happened to him after he died was not what he
Mhm.
wanted. And I'm wondering if maybe they cremated
Cremated.
him and he didn't want to
Mhm.
be cremated.
That's what I
That's
took
what
away
I
from it.
got. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like the idea that we can know that our body was not done with what we wanted done with it.
I want to be planted with a tree. I don't want to be put in a box. I don't want to be burned. I want to be planted with a tree.
That's cool.
The thought of being put into a fire scares the shit out of me. I know I'm dead,
Yeah.
but what if I'm not?
Yeah.
And what if I wake up and I'm being burned? I don't want it.
Yeah.
I don't want it.
Well, that is why they had like the wake. That's where part of the wake process
Oh.
came from, was to make
If you're
sure.
going to wake up, do it now.
Yep. So that they would have people in, 3 days or whatever it
Mhm.
was, and preparing the body before burial was part of that, was to see if they wake up from something.
Well, that's
Uh,
What if I'm in a
sorry,
coma?
this is small tangent, but we were down in Nashville a couple years ago. We went to the Belmead Plantation,
Mhm.
and they do tours there. And I can't remember what they said, but there's a reason why it's called the living room, because when they used to have wakes in the house, there was like I don't know what they used to call another room, but then like to cast that over and put a positive spin, they
Mhm.
said, let's call it the living room, because that's where
Oh,
people
yeah.
live and have their life and all that sort of
Mhm.
stuff.
Mm.
So I know there's more to it, but it's just one of those weird things that I remember.
You can
I
look that
remember
up
it's
and
called a
report back
drawing
later.
room because people withdraw to it after dinner. I learned that on the podcast.
Oh,
Oh.
I was looking it up one time, and that's why it was called a drawing room. I thought it was because people went and drew in there. It's not.
Yeah.
that's
No.
same.
It's not. There you go, everybody.
Knowledge, like we said, some
Yep.
random trivia. Speaking of cremation, I saw a TikTok, so it has to be true.
Obviously.
A woman whose husband is mortuary, what do you call it?
Mortician.
Mortician. And thank you. And she said that when you are cremated, the remains that you get are not necessarily your body. She said, because when you're cremated, your bones don't burn. It's just your flesh and all the other stuff burns off, and it's all just left with bones. So what they do is they take the bones out and they grind them. So what you get back as ashes is the bones
Gross.
of the dead.
Thanks.
Thanks for that. I love it.
Yeah.
Gross.
I think
Another
it's-
reason.
I think
Don't
it's better to
cremate.
think that it's bones and that it instead of like
That's true. Flesh
stuff.
and
Yeah.
muscle and sinew
Yeah.
and it's all gross. Just
I'd
put me
rather-
in the ground with a tree.
Nope. I don't want to take up any space. The ground is so covered with remains from hundreds and hundreds
But
and
see-
hundreds of years.
This way I fertilize a tree. As
Yeah.
I decay, the tree eats me. Circle of life.
Circle of
I got
life.
that from The Lion King.
I always thought, I don't know if I still would really want to do this because it's kind of gross, but do you guys know what a body farm is?
Yes.
So I think it would be kind of cool to
That is
do
cool.
that. Which
There's
people,
one
if you
around
don't,
here.
is
I
there?
feel like there's one not super far from us.
Oh, I'll have to look into
Amy, can you check that out?
that. Is there a body farm near Minneapolis?
Working on it.
The other thing is, oh yeah, okay. So people, if you don't know what a body farm is, I learned about this in a Patricia Cornwell book. So called the body farm. It's where you donate your body to science, and then they kind of basically put you out in this field where they are tracking things like how fast the bugs get to you and how long it takes for a body to decay under these
Mhm.
situations
Conditions.
and stuff.
They
and
use
so
it
helps.
to help. I'm sorry, Amy. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's
Go
okay.
ahead.
And they just use it to help solve crimes. Like they can tell if they find a body and it looks like this, they know it's been there this long, and these are
And
the
it looks like
conditions.
ABL. This is what happened. And if it looks like Megan, this is what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
That's
think that's
neat.
fascinating, and that would be helpful to, the greater good.
But then what do they do with you once they're done?
I don't know.
They cremate the remains when
Oh.
you donate. Yep. When you donate your body to science, because my great aunt actually did this when she died from cancer, not to a body farm, but she donated her body
Sure.
to maybe the U of M research.
Okay.
And then after a year, they return the remains back to the family.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, but in that way, then there's no way
Footprint?
for a family to know like what kind of things would have been done, because
Okay,
that
yeah.
can be
Yeah.
your decision to be a part of that, but that doesn't mean your family is going to agree with you
Right.
on
Mhm.
those things.
Mhm.
But what it did help cover was the cost of her, all of the after.
Expenses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did look up Body Farm first off. I want to tell you the first results that popped up. Hair and Body Care Center
Okay.
and Fleet Farm Auto Care Center.
Sure. I could
There's
see the
one in-
correlation.
One in Tennessee back in, sounds like in 2012, Wisconsin approved a $66.5 million referendum for a forensic field training site. Probably near Madison, I would guess. And then Care 11 local station they talked about the Tennessee body farm. So Tennessee, Texas, and California are probably the biggest body farms, it looks like.
Okay.
Location
I'll
of
go
body
there.
farms in the U.S. Carbondale, Illinois, Knoxville, Tennessee, Huntsville, Texas, Cullowhee, North Carolina, and San Marcos, Texas.
It
So,
sounds like the article
not
that
that I
I'm
know it.
reading, which is from 2015, says there's 6.
yeah.
No.
So I don't know if, maybe.
Oh, they do cite Patricia Cornwell's The Body Farm.
It's a really good book. First book of
I-
hers I ever read.
I learned about body farms from Bones.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I learned about it from Wine and Crime, the podcast where
Mhm.
3 friends chug wine, chat true crime, and unleash their worst Minnesotan accents.
I tangentially know Amanda. She and I share a ton of friends. Like,
Do you?
yeah, no, we're
I
not
think you did.
Facebook friends, but
Yeah.
she and I have a ton of mutual Facebook friends.
I
And
only
they're
have
all
one
like,
mutual friends with her. One mutual friend with her. It's unfortunate, but
No.
I'm kind of off their bandwagon anyway. So we're fine.
I still am a patron. I still, support them on Patreon, but I have not listened to an episode in probably 2 years.
I listen to them unless they get really political and like super far left and like all the cops suck and
yeah.
we shouldn't have guns. And then I'm just like, okay, then I can't get on that bandwagon.
I just got tired of them screaming "fuck the patriarchy" over and over again. I get
They
it,
really
and
stopped with
and I
that.
agree, but it got really annoying.
It did.
So
They
I
really have
I had
toned
to
down
peace
with
out.
it though. They
Yeah.
haven't really, the last couple of years, they've really kind of, they'll still say things like goddamn patriarchy, but yeah, for a while there, it was like every other sentence was fuck
It was
the
bad
patriarchy.
for a while. That's
it
when I
was
quit listening.
Yeah, it was a bit much. Anyway, so back to Steve
Yeah,
digging up
so-
some shit, and everybody calm down. I know you're going to be really like shocked by this, but Steve uncovered a fight between Native Americans and settlers.
Yep.
And also shock, it's about religion. It's not about property. It's about religion. So basically what happened was what is the word I'm looking for? It starts with an M. Missionaries moved in and they tried to convert. Spanish missionaries moved in and they tried to convert everybody in the tribe to
the Horoa
tribe.
Yep.
tribe.
I wrote it
And it
down
was-
that it sounds like Aurora so that
Yeah.
I would remember how to say it.
Yep,
Oh, that's good.
but it's
And it
spelled
was really
JORORO.
neat. R-O. It was
And the
really
guy-
neat because the historical guy,
Yeah.
Little Big Mountain, was like all dressed to the
Yeah.
nines in the garb. He had amazing face paint on. He had the coolest like headdress.
Mhm.
Like he was representing. And I thought
Yeah.
it was so neat that he was doing that and really showcasing his
It's-
heritage and their tribe.
Steve
Yeah.
asked, why are we meeting here? And he said, well, the village that I have built here, or we have
Mhm.
here, is very like what they would have had in this,
Mhm.
what was it, 1600s?
Yes.
1600s. Yep,
1600s.
late 1600s. Yeah, and I looked it up. It's actually an attraction you can go to in Florida.
Okay.
I found their Facebook page. I'll send I'll post a link in the show notes, but it's called Aurora Native Village, and you can go there and that guy's there telling stories and stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's really interesting. But
Mhm.
anyway, continue, Megan, with the story.
So the tribe lived there and the Spaniards came in and built missions. And at first they were like really doing well, like getting along, coexisting. Then the chief, Apa, converted into Catholicism. And that kind of opened the floodgates. And the Spaniard missionaries really were like ramping it up and trying to get everybody to convert. And, the other members of the tribe who didn't convert, they asked the priest to stop. They're like, please stop trying to convert us. Like, we're happy with our religion. And when he didn't, they went to the chief, Appa, and asked for the priest to be killed. But the chief said, nope, I'm not going to do that.
Mhm.
And so he was actually killed. So they
Mhm.
killed their chief. they went after the priest, killed him and 2 altar boys, and then they burned the mission, the missions that they were in. So this turned violent really, really quickly, which, I mean, on the one hand, I don't blame them. Like, don't come in here and shove your religion down somebody's throat. Like, it's not cool today, and it sure as shit was not cool back then. And so, of course, the Spaniards retaliated, and they killed a bunch of the rebels. And then it basically was like it back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. The Spaniards retaliated. Then
I thought they went in to try and kill the rebels, and the rebels wiped them all out every time they came back in for them.
No, they did succeed in killing them, but then they sent another group of soldiers, and those are the ones who got lost in the swamp and basically just wandered around until they died.
Hey, Ghosty fam, this is Fact Checker Amy with an update. Went back and took a look at that scene about the Hororo tribe and the 2 groups that we were confused about maybe a little. And there were 2 groups that went after the rebel Hororos. One was killed pretty quickly. The second went in, and they are the ones that are still wandering in the woods and the wilds.
Okay.
Or as this chief guy said, they could still be wandering around out there. I'm like,
I mean,
like,
spiritually they could be, but realistically they're so dead.
well, I was thinking that's a lot of ghosts. That's
Yeah.
a lot of ghosts wandering around in those swamps. And that's what I think Mikey is seeing.
And Amy did say she sees a lot of dead people, and
That's
she did
where
say it was a cemetery, so that could be not necessarily a quote unquote real cemetery, like a sanctioned cemetery, but like a cemetery
burial
just
ground.
made out of all of these people who died and were killed.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's where I think the person in the boat, that's where
Yep.
I draw a connection back to, because Little Big Mountain did talk about how they traveled and traversed all the lakes and everything within there in these boats that they built and, knew how to get around, which is probably part of the reason why that last group that went in of the missionaries, of the soldiers, they couldn't, you could get tied up in circles so easily if you don't know what
Right.
you're doing.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, we see it with people who get lost in the woods in the winter and they don't follow their own tracks back to where they were in the snow. And you wonder why people don't do that. And it's because the panic sets in
Yeah.
and all of the other things, everything that's in nature and everything that's happening. So,
Yeah,
That's why I don't go hiking. I stay home as God
Yeah.
intended on my
That's right.
couch.
that's right. Me too.
That's where the Lord said, "Stayeth on thy couch."
And Edith the Funyuns.
Yes, that's actually, I believe, in 1 Corinthians. I believe that's in that
First
That book?
Corinthians.
1 Corinthians. Oh, okay. I see what you did there. I see it.
And by the way, I did just look up about the living room, and it was Ladies' Home Journal that decided to change the name to living room because it always was a parlor. And a parlor was you hosted people, but then you had funeral parlors
Okay.
because that's where like wakes and stuff would take place. And then you had that come about. So then they're like, well, we need to change this so that it's like people
Not
are
morbid.
there and it's not about death.
Yeah.
And it's where people actually lived. So it's credited to Ladies' Home Journal in like I'm not sure exactly time frame here.
Well, that's why women do everything.
Yep.
In the words of Jillian Pensavalle and Patrick Hines, let the women do the work. For the best.
The best. I do want to mention that Amy did see 8 young men who were on a ship, and she heard that they were soldiers. She said it was a very long time ago. There were hardly any people here. So I'm guessing this is these guys.
Yeah.
And that's in one of her weird voices where she said,
Yes, yes, yes. Definitely people buried. Definitely people buried. Old.
and I noticed she sounded like Rain Man.
Yeah.
She was like, Wapner. Wapner's on at 6:00. Gotta get ready for Wapner. Anyway.
Very, very much.
Yeah. So now we're at the sketches. She said the 2 things stood out, the old woman and the witch attacking the living person. At the reveal, it was so nice to see Amy and Steve sitting next to each other again and not having Amy on one of those little monitors.
Yeah. By the way, did anybody else notice the cool pencil that the sketch artist had?
No.
No, but
Oh
I
my
did
God.
notice she was left-handed.
The pencil though was like metallic-y, shimmery, multiple colors like through it. I
nice.
wrote down a note. I was like, that is a cool pencil.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I'm a nerd. It's fine.
No, I'm
We're all
surprised I didn't
nerds.
notice that. I did pay attention to the sketch artist this time, and I felt like the whole Amy, is this what you saw? Yes, that's what I saw. Was a little bit less
Mhm.
stilted. Like I
Yes.
felt like they were having more like a conversation this
Yeah.
time.
Because
So,
they did show a lot more of the interaction than they usually
Mhm.
do.
Yep.
mhm.
Because Amy was like, she didn't have any eyebrows. Her hair was very short
Mm-hmm.
and spiky. And the sketch artist was like, how would you describe her face? And I
Yes.
really thought that it was more personable and not
Yep.
just,
Yeah.
yes, that is what I saw.
I am a robot.
You
Yeah.
drew the picture.
So at the table is, aside from Amy and Steve, is Lisa and her dad. The fiance was not there. And Amy mentions the cemetery and the 4 people coming out, all family. They're German, but they weren't. She said recent, like 1800s, but it was really 1900s.
Hmm.
If it's the Rosens, which is what they decided they thought it was.
Right.
And that she said that the one guy was super, super old. And Leonard was 72. So that's not super duper old. Even for, I mean, he died in 1987.
Yeah.
So it's not, I mean, even then, we didn't really consider 72 being
No.
super duper old.
I mean, it's no 90.
Mm-mm, mm-mm. And I noticed that Steve has a laptop
Mm-hmm.
on the
Mhm.
table, and he's
Yep.
reading off the laptop.
Yep.
So
Memory failing you, Steve? You need
yeah.
this.
I also noted that Steve pronounces "kiss-me" as "kiss me."
I feel like it was more of a kiss me, like with a Z sound, kiss me.
That could be.
He's funny.
He is funny. Amy talks about the guy in the boat and how Lisa's dad can see him and that he has abilities. Danny concurs, tells her about the shadow people he sees and the hitting and all that. So now Amy kind of wraps it up by saying there are 3 dead people in the house. The older woman, which is the relative of somebody who died there, died of cancer. And I could see as soon as they showed Steve, as soon as she said
Mhm.
that, he's like, ugh, like he knew exactly. who.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they were all hoping that mom,
moved
grandma
on.
was not there, but
Mhm.
she was. And then Lisa starts crying and Steve hands her a hanky.
I know. God,
Well,
he's
and I
so
think-
gentlemanly.
You know, going back to them not hoping that it wasn't her there is
Mhm.
because they didn't feel her presence.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I feel like that would be hard if you then find out someone's there and trying to get your attention and you haven't been able to
Mhm.
connect the dots.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve brings up the fact that she had a doppelganger when she was alive, but Amy didn't respond. Or if she did, they cut it. So then Amy says, well, I had a sketch done when they're talking about grandma.
Mhm.
And they whip it out. And Steve says they're identical.
Yeah. Steve was
But
like,
I'm like,
that's exactly her. And I was like, it
that's
looks like a
I'm like,
man.
no, it's not.
To me,
And
it
then
looked like
Amy
a
goes, do you
man.
think so?
Yeah.
And then the rest of them decide it's her too. But I'm like, it doesn't look like her to me.
Steve kind of influenced him on that one.
That's one thing that I've always struggled with the show is that Steve gives away what the drawing is.
Yes.
And again, maybe we don't know that, maybe that's cut later or whatever, but you know, he always pulls out and you're not
Yeah.
going to want to see
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Or, ooh, this is rough.
I
Yeah.
kind of, my stylistic approach would want them to open it and
Yes.
him to see it afterwards so that there's not an influence on it.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, obviously it's a choice that they've made and have done for a long time. But
Yeah.
it's always been something that's
Mm-hmm.
irked me.
I always
Yeah.
thought it was interesting that Amy didn't open it and set it down
Right.
on the table.
Because she's seen it before.
Yeah,
But I
she's already
guess
looked
they
at
have
it.
that shock value from Steve.
Yeah. And there's
I don't
been
know.
a few times when she's like, he's opening it and she's like,
Yeah, she's like, I don't wanna
I don't
see
want
it.
anything to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, anyway.
Okay, so another person there is the dead male, the one that shot himself, and it's the neighbor. And the thing that we already talked about, the body, how he thought his body was destroyed. He says the guy who shot himself and the older lady are there to warn the family about the third person here,
Mm-hmm.
the older woman who is the quote unquote witch.
Yeah.
The guy who shot himself says the witch made him do it. She is dangerous and physical. Amy saw her hit a woman in the face,
Mm-hmm.
and she is honed in on Mikey. She's trying to
Mhm.
smother him. And she said she had a sketch done from the perspective of the person who's being smothered. And she said, because I was in their body
Mhm.
when I saw that, which I thought was really weird.
That's creepy.
She was in
Mikey's body?
really in Mikey's body, but she was
Yeah.
in his position and saw
Yeah.
what he saw. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I thought this sketch was creepy.
I texted Amy and I was like, this sketch is so fucking creepy.
You know what
Really
it
creepy.
makes me think of all of a sudden?
What?
Cinderella's stepmom.
I get that.
Mm.
Yep. I can
That-
see that.
Just was sitting here as knowing that this was
Mhm.
coming, and I was like, that's what it reminded me. At first, I went to Lady and the Tramp, and I was like, no, it's not Lady and the Tramp.
No.
It's Cinderella's
Yeah.
stepmom.
Okay.
Yeah, the artist did a really, really good job on
Yeah,
that,
he did.
especially with her eyes. They're very
Mhm.
expressive.
And the hand. The hand is
Yes.
coming over to smother somebody, and she's got like all the lines on the hand and everything.
Yeah, so like
Yep.
the hand is in front of her mouth and
Mhm.
all you see is her eyes.
Mhm.
Well, and that was
crazy eyes.
she asked Amy, well, what was her expression? What was her intent in her expression?
Mhm.
Hmm.
And that's, I thought that was pretty, it was valid as it came
Mhm.
across.
Yeah. Yeah. And so Amy thinks that this witch wants to kill Mikey, the little boy.
Mhm.
And then Gramps, he
I
gets
know.
real upset.
I was like,
And he said,
Danny.
I know. He said, if someone hurt him, there'd be hell to pay. I'd shoot myself just to go get him.
Yeah.
And I
Amy's
went,
reaction was like,
I know. I took a
"No."
picture of her
Okay.
doing that. So that'll be on the socials.
Yeah,
but
we don't need to do that, Grandpa. Let's just
No.
slow the roll
No,
here.
yeah, let's calm the fuck down.
Calm down.
So, and then Steve gave his best quote of the entire episode.
Is there anything you can do to kick this old bag out of the house and go back to living a peaceful life?
And for that, I turn it over to Amy.
So she says what they need to do is find a female, older medium who's very strong, come in and make contact with the witch. She'll show her how she can move on. And when she leaves, the other two will go because they're only here because of her.
Mhm.
And they need to move on the guy outside, and the medium can do that too.
Mhm.
And then Lisa asks about Mikey having abilities, and Amy says he might, but he's so young, he'll probably grow out of it.
Which I don't understand. Like, how do you know? Why didn't Amy grow out of her abilities?
I know. Why doesn't
Well,
anybody?
because there's because children are open,
Mhm.
and that doesn't mean that they have abilities necessarily. They're just more open to the surroundings because of I think because there's a lot of the innocence yet,
Mhm.
but you hear it a lot where, there's
Oh, yeah.
the best
Like, I have
friend, the
imaginary
invisible friends
friends
and
and-
all
yeah.
that sort of stuff. And then after a certain point, you just don't hear about seeing those, or like when you've had the stories of children saying stuff about past lives potentially, and then they get to a certain point and they don't talk about any of it anymore. And it's more of it's like there's just that close to it aspect rather than having ability aspect.
Mhm.
And the way that Amy replied gave me the feeling that he's just young and that he maybe doesn't
Mhm.
have the abilities, because she just kind of was like, I mean, he's young.
Mhm.
And that was,
Yeah,
but,
that's
that Danny
true.
does, but Lisa does not necessarily, because Lisa was not getting the messages from her mom.
Right. Well, and also, if all these spirits leave the home and Mikey continues to grow up in this home without having any spirits around him, I would imagine he would lose any ability he had because he's not exercising it. He's not using it. But anyway.
Yeah.
So the wrap up was 4 weeks later and they're still looking for a medium. And I'm like, why can't Amy just do it when she's there?
Maybe
In this
she's too drained from the
Maybe.
walk.
But I feel like she's already spoken to all of these ghosts. She's
Yeah.
a female, older medium who's strong. Well, I feel like I get it when you have to ask for a shaman and you have to go
Mhm.
find somebody, and I get that. She can't do anything about that. But when the person they're looking for is basically Amy Allen, I don't know why she can't just do it when she's there.
I don't know.
But
I
anyway.
mean, she has said in other ones before that, like, well, I'm going to take this person with me and I'll help
Yes.
them cross here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I wonder
She
if
has done
that's, an aspect of the drain. I mean, you can kind of see in that just sitting there and go through, and we know that it's a long process to get to that point.
Mhm.
But I will say Lisa's voice at the end there felt very uncertain.
Yeah.
about things. That's what it just kind of seemed like. It was kind of like, well, we're still waiting, and
It's still going on.
unfortunately, like things are still happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So hopefully that will
Resolve
find
itself.
somebody, or
we
they
can't.
hopefully have by now.
We can't check on an update because it just aired.
It just aired. And to that, I know you ladies already know this, but I'll tell the rest of the people. We do have a couple of clients who have agreed to or are interested in coming on the show and doing an
Couple
interview
more,
with us.
yeah.
A couple more. So
Yeah.
So I don't want to see yet who they are in case
Mhm.
it doesn't happen, but one of them is an episode coming up pretty soon, and one of them's later on the season. So we'll space them out. And if
Yeah.
anybody else who's listening is a client, former client of the Dead Files, especially if it's this season, because we're trying to focus on this season. But if you're an older season and you want to come on and talk, we're happy to talk to you. Just email us at theactivitycontinues@gmail.com, and we will get in touch and try and find a time to meet up. I think it would be really fun. My dog is doing something weird in the back.
I noticed that.
I've been watching.
Wait,
Is that Digby?
Yep.
Digby.
Hey, Diggs, silly
Oh,
boy.
good boy. Oh, good boy.
I just got him a new bed.
Oh, fancy.
Thank you. Right there.
So,
I love
thank
those
you
ones.
everybody for joining. Next week, we are going to be talking about the Dead Files new episode, Sudden Fury, which is season 15, episode 2, and it will air June 8th of 2023.
It is time for an Alanism.
It's time for an Alanism.
Since we might have some new people here, I just want to explain, because I haven't explained this in a while, but my dad's name was Alan. My name is Amy. My dad's name is Alan. We are not related or connected in any way to
Amy
the
Allen.
Amy Allen.
Just a happy coincidence.
Yeah. So my dad passed away in 2019. He was an old TV and radio guy, loved the spotlight. He had a children's show on a local TV when I was little. And as he aged, his mind faltered and he started saying some really odd but hilarious things. And luckily, my stepmother wrote them all down.
Yes.
And I have a document with 89 of his sayings on them. And I do believe there are more, as we will run out.
We are going to run out.
We are going
yes.
to run out. I just want to make sure everybody knows we are not making fun of him.
No.
He loved having these read back to him when he was alive. He thought they were just as funny as we did. And I honestly believe that he is happy to be a part of this show. In fact, Jenny, the psychic, even said he was.
He was, yeah.
So,
So hey,
I
Alan,
think
what's up?
we're good. So anyway, what we do is we read one of the Alanisms from the...
Have we done number 1?
Number 1, I believe, is...
that's right. You're saving it. You're saving
I'm
it.
saving it for like our finale because it
Have
is
2? What about
the
2?
best. Yeah, we have done 2.
3.
We have done 3.
7.
7. Okay. We have not
Ooh,
done
good.
7 yet.
Nice job, Amy.
Thank you. And here all week.
Tip your weight staff.
Tip your weight staff. Or what was it that the transcription system said? Something about check your weight, Stephanie, or something like that.
Or
Check your weight,
Stephanie. Stephanie, you don't need to check your weight. You're bigger.
Okay, today's Alanism is number 7. To see a young chick who's that old with such diplomacy.
I feel like that's
Talking
the
about me.
start of a sentence,
Yeah.
and then he just didn't end it.
Yeah. But a young chick who's that old.
It is talking about Amy. You're right.
Yeah, totally me.
Yep.
Oh, funny.
Do we have our new feature this week?
Oh,
We have 1.
okay.
We have 1.
Okay. So let Amy P.
do you want
explain
to
what this is.
understand it?
Yes.
Or,
We have a new
explain it.
feature. Yep, new feature to see where Megan is going to tell us what sent her toddler into a fit this week.
There were a lot, but the one that I wrote down was, so his high chair has like one bottom and a top part that you can remove. And so so the top part was dirty and I took it off to clean it and he lost his shit. And so I had to put the dirty back on even though it was dirty. And so he threw a bit of a fit that way. So that's what,
He liked all
fit
those
was.
crumbs on there.
just like his father.
The
All
apple don't
right.
fall far.
Far from the tree. Well, thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll see you next week. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Activity Continues podcast. We really appreciate you giving us your ears for a bit. Please reach out if you have a suggestion for which episode of The Dead Files we should cover next, or if you have a spooky story you'd like us to share on the show. We can be reached at theactivitycontinues@gmail.com or through our website or any of our socials. Links are all in the description of the show. Please feel free to drop us a note and say hi. And join us next time when The Activity Continues. The Activity Continues is produced by me, Amy, at Collected Sounds Media and is part of the independent Collected Sounds podcast network. We are also proud members of the Boo Pod network of super cool podcasts.
Nailed it.